Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us again on Dawdle.Live Podcast. And extremely grateful to Mr. Devang Mehta and Mr. Budhaditya who have joined us to share their insights and experiences on our podcast. Dawdle community is now over 125,000 plus, which includes global CXOs and senior leaders from across the globe. And we are extremely grateful to all the leaders who have joined us till now to share their experiences. This is a different podcast altogether because for the first time, we are trying to have a conversation between a very strategic investor in the form of Mr. Devang Mehta has been into the investment, domain for quite a long time, a veteran in this space. And on the other hand, we have Mr. Bhattacharyya, who comes with enormous amount of experience before starting this company of his, and he's doing something innovative. So we will start with maybe if both of you can take us through your journey so far to give a good context to our audience.
Thanks, Rishi, for having me. It's a great privilege to be part of your podcast. I'm a 2004 IIT Kharagpur food engineer, and we exist. Food engineering is not a very popular branch, but we do exist. Then I worked for a short while in software, then jumped on to do my MBA from IIM Indore. Post my MBA, I've worked in various companies in India from 2008 to 2017, mostly in the infrastructure space, construction space in the domain of strategy and operations. Thereafter, I joined Amazon as a product manager in 2017, went on to become the head of product management for the automotive division in Europe. Europe is Amazon's European headquarters, and we used to handle 5 countries from there. And 2024, I jumped on to this startup world, so to say, with something which I believe very strongly about. And I'm working in the space of robotic kitchens, trying to improve the operations of Indian commercial kitchens. And when I say Indian, I'm talking about Indian and ethnic world, basically something more complex than a burger base is how I put. So yeah, that's in a short, and I'm sure you have more questions. I'll not hold more.
Yes. We'll come to Mr. Devang if you could take us through your journey.
Sure. Thank you, Rishikesh. Again, congratulations on this new platform. It looks really nice and it's a great medium. I have more than 25 years of experience in the startup ecosystem, both across India and Silicon Valley. I've been in operational roles, helping startups as an engineer first, and then as a marketer, taking products to market as head of marketing and business development. And then I post that I moved back to India in 2016. So I have a decade worth of investing experience, both as an angel as well as a venture capitalist at Antil Ventures, where I built their first SEBI-registered fund. And of late, I've been advising startups on fundraise, anywhere from a few $100,000 all the way to $5-7 million is a sweet spot. I help them raise money from my network of investors, and also help in other operational as well as strategic areas like how much to raise and anticipated dilution and things like that. And academically, I'm trained in computer science and engineering. I have an MBA from Carnegie Mellon.
Thank you so much, Devang, for giving us a great introduction. I've known Devang for the last 1 year now, and I know that how much passionate you are for the startup ecosystem. And I have learned a lot from Mr. Gaurav about you as well, Mr. Bhattacharya, about how passionately you're building this startup. So the first topic that I have for Mr. Bhattacharya is, since you have been into the commercial kitchen space, what is that core inefficiency in commercial kitchens that made you believe robotics plus AI could shift the economics of F&B operations? And was there a tipping point moment?
Thanks, Rishi. So I think the story is more personal. I approached it from a very consumer point of view. I saw Indian food having a lot of love from everywhere, really a lot of demand. However, if I ask you to think about an Indian food brand, which has more than 500 point of sales, you would not be able to name one with very consistent output, a brand which is up there. And my point of journey was from there, and then I started digging deeper and understanding why is so difficult. Turns out it is still very skill dependent, human dependent, the running of the kitchen itself. The skill is hard to replicate. So you can do 5 kitchens, you can do 10 kitchens. You can't take it to 500. And the moment you start talking about in terms of hundreds of the kitchen, you will have to have more process driven, more tech driven approach. And that is how I landed up solving this. My hypothesis is that if you can digitize recipes, if you can digitize the whole backend, it's a backend problem. You know, make the backend, you fix the backend, then automatically the front end is you can proliferate in the front. And since you talked about the tipping point was, I firmly believe that in the next 15 years, you will see at least 5 or 6 ethnic brands. And I'm talking about Indian, Southeast Asian, or Pan Asian, or whatever, going towards that 10,000 or more point of sales. Actually. So now, if you should think that has to happen, that will have to happen on the backbone of some strong tech. Can't be just wishful thinking. And hope to be a part of
Devang, you have been a technocrat. So, when you first evaluate sectors like these, like, F&B robotics, what helps you decide whether it's just a futuristic concept or an investable business category?
Look, I think a lot of our GDP, leave alone startups, is being driven by the consumer. It's a backbone of our economy today. So anything that intersects with consumer demand, especially millennials and next gen people that want food delivered at their doorstep within 10, 30 minutes, nicely packaged within a certain price range. Anything that intersects with that at any point, any meaningful point, is a great business model at scale, right? Everyone wants to do it. So scaling is the key litmus test on this. But you're intersecting with the the consumer of the Indian economy. So it definitely has investable elements. Now, enabling technology like robotics, which alleviates some of the problems that Buddha rightly identified, lack of standardization, hygiene, process, the inherently high and chronic churn that a lot of these cloud kitchens, I should say, are experiencing.
I hope there was a chicken also.
Yeah, there was no. It was a complete faux pas there. Cloud kitchens, I should say. These that they're experiencing the churn. I mean, it's impossible to counter, right? I mean, it's fundamentals of business. When you have a business model that is so prone to churn, it's hard to scale a business. So there has to be standardizations from technology. At which point, it's more sustainable. So the combination of these two makes these a sustainable investment. The ones, I mean, the emerging winners that are enabling B2C across different segments and highly affluent segments in the consumer economy are definitely investable business models.
Right. Buddha, can you walk us through a real deployment scenario? What the kitchen operations looked like before automation and after you have implemented your automation over there?
Sure. Very happy to. We actually, we're kind of doers in the sense, do and prove it out. Seeing is, so we did it for ourselves as well, more than proving it to everyone else. So we ran a 6 months proof of concept kitchen, and we had a very diverse kind of cuisine. So we were doing North Indian, South Indian, some pasta, and so we tried Thai also, and all of this from one kitchen. Now, if you imagine a kitchen without using our systems, you would imagine 4 or 5 chefs. Our kitchen ran with no chef, zero. And we had digitized around 30 recipes in partnership with IHM Chennai, the hotel management lead chefs. One time recipe, let's say, providing into the system and then working from that. See, overall, basically, I would say if I were to list down, it's very, our kitchen run on systems is very proactive versus being reactive. Typically, the demand is in a surge, right? You have a lunchtime demand, you have a dinner time demand. Now, that surge is kind of the killer of operations for all kitchens. You will always have to, your capacity will always be up to that surge levels, but you'll never face that. So how do you optimize that is the point. And you optimize that through robotics, through technology, so that you are able to replicate things faster. And that's what our kitchen has seen. A lot of calm, by the way, since Devang talked about hygiene. Hygiene is that I'm sure you guys would not be able to eat from a particular food brand if you see the food kitchen. Whereas for in our case, we could really prioritize hygiene because the moment you're dealing with less number of people, we had almost 50% lesser staff for the similar output than what other kitchens would have. So we have lesser staff, hence more things in control. We are able to control a lot more. And see, the technology is the one part. The process is very important. You're thinking about a very new way of doing things. You're making, everybody says running food operations is very tough, very tough, very tough. But if you ask them that will you invest X amount of time or will you change your process, nobody would do it because frankly, it's a lot of change. They don't want to disrupt their existing business. But for us, that's the advantage that we are kind of starting with how this problem statement should be solved. And we are solving it exactly like that with the right mix of technology, processes, people, and so on to bring out the best output. And when I say best output, in consistent quality, good hygiene, freshness, all of those are important parameters.
Right.
Devang, do you have any opinions on this kind of automation which Buddha is, trying to implement?
No, it's he's absolutely on the right path. I can give you an anecdote. I don't. This was many years ago, decades ago. I don't know if you all know this. McDonald's in the US had tried to sell pizzas, and it failed miserably, actually. So, a lot of people were really confused and flummoxed. How can this, the best fast food joint in the world, add an item to the menu successfully and deliver a world class experience? Actually, I believe, hired a management consultancy firm to look into it. And they found that it failed because the DNA of the company was so ingrained to produce an output in 90 seconds. So they could not train the people to wait for 7, 8, or 10 minutes till a food output was ready. So people, they were just habituated to taking it out in 5 minutes, 7 minutes. It was raw, not cooked properly. The pizza was just not a good quality pizza. So this is a remarkable story to me. I know why you failed, because the whole DNA of the organization and everyone working in it was to produce food, fast food, produce it fast within 90 seconds and give it, and keep on doing that for hours and hours and days on end. So I think ingraining a certain level of discipline when it comes to hygiene, quality, process, disciplining the workforce to do that, and then keeping them captive, not captive, just keeping them loyal to your organization for lengths of time is near impossible in India, unless you have a very powerful brand that is doing so good and people are so proud to work for it or something like that. So an element of digitization and technology is absolutely crucial if you want to, you rightly said, scale, right? If you have to deliver output to someone's house in 30 minutes, and the demand is so lumpy, like lunchtime, dinner time, maybe a snack, to be able to do that without a technology element is very, very hard.
And on top of it, Devang, since you have been a part of so many deals, so when you talk about tech-led industries like F&B, is product capability the starting point, or do you also look for operational stickiness, switching barriers, and revenue model clarity first?
Yeah, so for something like this, right, where you're an enabling element to an inherently F&B business, there's two things. One's the brands that you are supplying to also need to have sustainability, right? Now, if you have put in your robotics, your robots at 5, 10 of these kitchens, but they themselves fail, then your business will also suffer. But I think, yes, any business to be successful has to be sticky. So once you're inside a consumer, there should be great barriers to exit for them. They should not be able to replace yours with the next best technology, even if it's slightly cheaper. There should be a big barrier for your technology to exit their business. In other words, you should be so embedded in their operations, maybe not just in making food, but up and down the value chain, predicting demand, predicting procurement items. I can think of 5 areas in the modules in the CRM and operational life chain where you can easily expand your business. So you essentially take over operations, and then the F&B, their job is just to propagate their brand.
Yes.
And your job is to run the whole backend. At that point, it's close to nirvana, right? I mean, you are going to be with them for a very long time throughout the journey, and then you replicate that success to the a few 10, 15 more brands, and then you are a leader in your segment of being a major technology player for the F&B segment.
Buddha, would you like to add something here? Like, how are you making sure that happens?
Yeah, I was smiling all through because you're saying kind of felt like you was reading my mind. So, see, practically we are trying to do the same thing. And to add to Devang, see, we have defined split the whole process into 8 processes. One of them is the core cooking process, which we are replicating through robotics. But there are other elements like the order management, inventory management, stuff like that, which connects because of robotics and processes. It becomes easier. You are able to predict demand, and which is why I said I'm talking about a calm kitchen, a kitchen which feels like a workplace and not a firefighting place. So if I am able to replicate that kitchen for an operations for me, then the brand's task boils down to getting customers, which in itself is a big task. But then when they are scaling, let's say they are already doing this for 5 locations, and I open up the 6th location for them. In that location, I run the whole backend for them while the brand gets the customers. That's the model we are following, just starting right now. So early in our journey, otherwise I would have given anecdotes of the stickiness which Devang talked about. But I'm sure that both why economics as well as the positioning of the business model is such that it inherently assumes symbiotic relationship in the sense that it depends on me and I depend on the brand. It's a two-way relationship in which both proliferate, because I'm sure there are brands who are expecting to go from 5 to 50 to 500 in no time, and they can't do it all by training staff. My process and systems comes in handy, because then I'm able to do 50 in a month, open up 50 locations in a month.
Right. And also, Buddha, if we talk about robotics and automation, they often carry a perception of very high capex. How are you solving this adoption barrier through your business model?
You see, but the way I would look at it, it's not the price, the actual price tag which matters, but the value which people are seeing which matters. If you deliver value, then price tag is, and my measurement of value in this case is probably an ROI metric which I would look at is what is the payback period, etc. So what we are trying to do is make it simpler for brands to work with us. Start as a shared service operations, kind of a typical shared service model with them. So instead of going to them and saying that you give me 10 lakhs today and I'll install robotics in your kitchen and disrupt your operations and giving them a lot of headache around that, the way we are thinking about on our first few kitchens we're running, and it becomes a point of extra revenue and point of extension of distribution for. And from that, and it's a very low barrier thing. It's like you pay me a basic cost and a per food I order commission kind of a stuff. So this basically gives them the trust that, all right, this can work. Hopefully down the line, they will see the value in this proposition. Once they see the value in the proposition and the payback period is more certain, I am sure that there will be brands will be signing up for more. So yeah, to answer in short, yes, we do see this as a higher initial capex, and we want to make it simpler for brands to work with us, and hence we are taking a value route. So show the value and then ask for the money.
And Devang, you must have seen a lot of these models which involve higher capex. So, what are the ways out for a founder who is just starting out, who need to have the initial set of customers? Any advice or any suggestions around the pricing or the model which they follow?
Yeah, that's always a tough one to crack in India, where respect for software still remains at best mediocre. But at least it's changing, right? So, I mean, one, you be part of the whole software movement where you participate in, I guess, marketing and papers and industry events where you keep educating the whole industry about the benefits of a software. Yeah, payback period is one clear metric, but you just have to be upfront about it, saying that this is an investment that won't pay back immediately. But, starting month number 12 or 18 or whatever it is, it's pure profits. I think forward-looking founders now are slowly beginning to understand that things don't pay back immediately, but then the economics of something once it is paying back it's fantastic, and then at scale it's even better. Try and work out if you're able to do it, if you're able to monitor someone's operations closely and you are in a position to exactly calculate the benefits they accrue every month, let's say, then try and do a split of that the first few months so that it's more affordable, more amenable to them, and it just avoids that sticker shock, so as to say that at one suddenly pay 5 lakhs at one time. So these are classical hand of discounts to some extent for the initial few months, the classical techniques. I think nothing, there's no magic bullet here that you're going to get around the procurement person in an organization here without stress or angst.
Devang, you must have seen a lot of models like this. What is your experience with, are there similar companies? How is the market looks like? What are the major risks involved in such kind of businesses?
Yeah, these are very interesting models. I think it's like any startup. You can win. First biggest challenge is to win the first 2 customers. As Jeffrey Moore describes, crossing the chasm. The first chasm is the first 2 or the first few, let's say. That's the first beachhead. So let's say you capture one critical mass of one metro city or 2 tier 2 towns, you capture a significant chunk of the market, then you have a case study. Okay, I was able to change the operations materially for 25 cloud kitchens in Mumbai and Bangalore, or in Indore and Jaipur. Okay, so then from a funding standpoint, of course, all of these will be key inflection points. You do raise money from friends, family first. Then you raise money from angels who believe in your concept. Then you establish a beachhead, at which point you raise a seed round, or you might even leapfrog to a Series A. So one part of the answer is the ability to sell the concept, sell the vision, sell the founder pedigree, and all to investors to continuously scale. And that's a key part of the equation. The other part is once you've accrued funding, then you have to operationalize your own startup to a point where it's the revenue is non-linear and going up to the top and to the right, as we like to call it. And the costs are growing incrementally to a point where it resembles a software business, where each increment, at some point, each incremental unit of sale is at a very high gross margin and a respectable net margin. So, first principles of growing a company, a technology business applies here also, albeit with an F&B flavor, and in this case, the Indian ecosystem and the ability to growth hack in India.
Buddha, what is your defensibility? Like, how is the market looks like, and what's your defensibility?
Yeah, see, I keep thinking about this a lot, and especially given my strategic background. I I don't think my defensibility of the company comes from one single element. It's not just the hardware or it's not just the process. There's a combination which gives me the defensibility in the sense that the way I understand very minutely about the operations of my customers and how I replicate that through the combination of technology, process, and people is what is very hard to replicate. So tomorrow, let's say, since Devang took McDonald's name, I just throw in that name to say that let's say they want to do ethnic kitchen and ethnic cuisine. I'm sure the hardware will be easy to come up with, but to replicate the whole combination in the manner which we would be able to do or somebody more flexible would be able to do. So just to give you a matrix, when we were running our proof of concept kitchen, we just decided one day that we should do Thai because there were some demand signals that we could do Thai in 2 flat days. On the third day, we had Thai cuisine, 3 Thai curries out for the customers. Now that kind of thing, because my process was flexible enough to do, no new chef added, nothing, no new helper added. Programming the robotic, and that too a very first variant. So you can understand that the flexibility matters. So it's just a combination of these 3 things which I believe will lead to the moat, not one single thing. I hope I answered your question, though.
Yes. Yeah. Are there competitors in the market in the same segment?
Yes, of course, there are competitors. For example, Rebel Foods, which is a unicorn, is a competitor. They use a combination of what we are saying. They're not using robotics particularly, but they use their advanced tech system, at least for the demand management and the order management part of it. Do extremely well. There's a keto company, a Dubai-based unicorn called Kitopi, which does an excellent job at it. There are 200 brands working with Kitopi as we speak. It
Yes, I've
deploys
heard.
this, and
Yes.
there are many companies. Incidentally, a robotic-based company was started by 4 MIT graduates. Then it was called Spice, and they got acquired by Sweet Green, which is a salad chain in US. So there are many models which we are seeing evolving. There are multiple sides to approach the problem. Most of them I have seen have approached it from a technology point of view. I am approaching it from a more operations business point of view. Yeah, I don't think it will be a winner takes it all market. We'll have different models and all of them can win.
So Devang, as Buddha was talking about, like the operations is the moat here. But as per you, what are the signs that a startup in this category is building a moat or just assembling hardware plus software layers?
I think amount of funds they raise is one good indicator of how much they're succeeding. I mean, yeah, you can be sarcastic about it and say that, yeah, they're able to convince investors, but they're not actually scaling. But they must be doing something right to attract beyond a point, you have to be doing something right to scale. So I think it's like any other industry, really. Lots of people come into it once it's attractive and the TAM is attractive enough. So a lot of people come into it, a lot of innovation happens, and then slowly the triage happens where at least 50 to 60% don't raise the initial round or just cannot sustain operations. Then a small amount actually raise a series or a seed round. So that slowly start going to 8-10% who are in that phase, and then some get customers, some don't. So the emerging, there's about 5 players that reach Series A. At which point there's I think in something like this there's enough room for 3 winners. So if I were to take a funnel approach to answer your question, this is how I would look at it. But yeah, I mean, again, the intrinsics of the market is the same as in intrinsics of this marketplace, and the industry is same as of anything else, as in fintech or edtech or something. Good founder pedigree, ability to execute, co-founders joined at the hip and aligned with a certain vision. the ability to grow a startup, not just funding, but to build out a world-class team technologically as well as from a sales and marketing standpoint. The sheer madness required to growth hack in an economy like ours. And then some X factor, some luck. Those are the usual ingredients required to succeed in this marketplace.
Buddha, how does the TAM looks like, and how is the team?
Damn. See, if you want a dollar number, I can blurt out a number which probably we all can laugh about. I mean, it's all right. Staying on the TAM topic, it's a fairly, we are talking about a mid segment of this food market, right? We are not talking about brands who are doing fine dining. I'm not talking about that. And I'm leaving out the total one stop, one place. No, means somebody who doesn't have the mission to produce the second one. So we're talking about a mid tier. That's about roughly 30% of the total market segment right now. And if you consider, and I'm talking about India alone. By the way, we talked about a lot about India. I see a lot more bigger market happening globally as well for Indian
Yes.
food and Indian cuisine food. And there, absolutely, you can't win by human brilliance.
Right. Yes.
A personal bravado will not do much for you if you're wanting to win in, let's say, Western Europe or US. So when I talk about a company like ours, yeah, we are talking about a TAM which is talking about 30% of the Indian market segment, 30% of the total F&B market segment, and then talking about a broader overall global market segment as well. And when I say global, typically I'm not meaning Southeast Asia and stuff is easier. I'm talking about real. I'm talking about the US market. Just a statistics to share with you. You know how many Indian restaurants in US is like 10,000 restaurants, whereas Chinese is 50,000. Just compared, and it's not that Indian food is less liked or anything like that. It's just that demand is there. You have a 5x opportunity right today, sitting right here, and it's going to increase. Compound that element, and you'll get a number which is sufficient enough to fight for it.
But isn't it, Buddha, like, just out of curiosity, I'm asking, like, Chinese food is easy to cook as compared to the Indian food?
Yeah. So you end up proving my point actually. So that's exactly the point. So it's a tougher market to win, but if you have a solution, then the demand is right there. Is the demand for the Chinese food and the Indian food is quite on the similar levels actually. Maybe at some point Indian is higher. The consciousness of since we are talking about America, the US customer is more in tune with the Indian palate and Indian thought process, and it's grown over the years, thankfully, because of our diaspora itself. So there's a huge demand which is untapped. It's just not done because it is tough. So
Yes.
if I can crack that code, I have a ready market for that. Means when I say I am talking about a brand which can go there, and we can enable that.
And now from both of you, the question is like, if you look 5 years down the line, will this AI driven autonomous kitchens will become a new category or category standard, or will it still be experimental in most of the markets?
I can go first. If I were to hazard a guess here, I think it'll, if not the norm, it will be highly prevalent because it will have perpetrated and penetrated into many, many segments of our economic and personal life, frankly, to a point where, someone operating a kitchen clearly cannot operate without digitization, likely cannot operate without some element of automation, and very likely cannot operate without an element of AI for predicting, as Buddha mentioned, inventory, demand, supply, key elements of operations cannot be done by today's tools. There will be highly specialized AI tools that will be managing most, if not all, of these operations. That's my take.
And I have one interest. Yeah, Buddha, please go ahead. Yes.
Sorry, I just add one thing. In the last 50 years, you see an Indian commercial kitchen from the 1980s and you see it today or whatever, early 1980s. The two things we have added in that kitchen is a microwave oven and a computer to accept orders, right? I'm sure that in the next 10 years it will not. We'll add a lot more things in. Whether it's a robot or not, I don't know, but we'll add more things which will make stabilize. The whole world cannot be running in one direction and Indian commercial kitchens in another direction. It will happen. It will bound to happen. And means obviously because I am a founder in the space, I'll obviously be bullish about it. But beyond the my common sense hat, and we can do with that level of change every 50 years if we add just two gadgets inside the place.
Yeah, I can actually see that happening because this is going to democratize opening of the restaurants and all that. Because I think 3 months back, one of my friend was also looking to open up a restaurant in Bangalore, and the biggest trouble that this guy had is that from where will I get the cook? This is one. And the second point which I'm noticing is that the society in which I live, I see the salary of gardeners and carpenters have skyrocketed. And while I was talking to that gardener, he told that, sir, there are only 5,000 gardeners like me in entire Bangalore. So,
See, I think, I don't know, the statistics is all over the place, by the way. You'd see that today IHMs, there's some 18 or 20 IHMs, and sorry, keep growing at so numbers. How many are able to place people? How many are able to place? Very few, because there are so many five-star hotels who could afford their salaries and keep them enthused, etc. By the way, they end up doing, I would say, not a job I would like to do, at least for the first 5-7 years. Now, how you talk about democratizing? So, good food is going to be democratized, whether it likes it or not, and that's going to happen like it has happened for other things in the same domain. So, for example, good music has gotten democratized. Content creation has gotten democratized. Food creation also will get democratized. But where are the tools for that? There has to be some platform, right? And that
yes.
platform will evolve, and it is an inevitable.
Right. And now we have come to the end of the podcast. And one very interesting and insightful thing that we want to ask from Devang is that what will be your advice to all the founders who are pitching in emerging hardware linked categories?
Look, I think from a fundability standpoint, at least 70% of startups' appeal remains the same, no matter what you are. Digitization of F&B, food tech, ed tech, agri tech, whatever. The DNA and the pedigree of the founding team and their alignment to a common vision and goal, especially at the early stages where that is the only constant in the journey. Everything else will change: pivots, market shifts, regulation, consumer preference. You're bound to have pivots, which brings me to another point. Is one trait that I left out is the humility of the founders to accept a pivot when you're told, especially when you're told by someone apart from you, like an investor or a board member or a friend or anyone. We all think that it's common sense. They'll see where the wind is blowing and they'll pivot. But you'll be surprised at the number of occasions at which people stay stubborn to what they believe is a winning cause and they end up losing. Right. So founder traits, including the humility to accept a pivot and execute a pivot. Simple, good unit economics, whether it be B2B, B2B2C, or B2C, that will not change. It's like a constant in our lives. And then, you know, I think if there was one skill which is really needed, at least in the founding team, is the ability to sell. So not just sell a license. That also is needed because you typically don't have the budget to hire a salesperson early on. So you have to make the first 5-10 license sales yourself. But not just sell a license or a food item or whatever. The ability to sell the vision to everyone, from an investor to an intern, right? You have to raise money. You have to build a world-class team whom most likely you'll hire at a sub-industry package, right? So you have to sell the vision to them to attract them to your team, all the way down to interns who these days have a lot of choices on where they want to work at. If you're hiring interns from the best premier institutes, you have to at some point sell your vision to them too, believe it or not. So I think these traits, and then of course timing and small elements of luck and all that, but these key traits, if you have them, if you have all of them or at least most of them, you're on the path to succeed.
And Buddha, to you, what are some of the learnings that you would like to share with all the entrepreneurs who are building in robotics and automation?
Thanks, Rishi. We are quite early in this journey to sermonize anyone. However, we're happy to share our learnings. One, I think, and again, the most very simple learnings, basically, maybe not very profound, is looking at things into details is very important. Understanding things into the core reason. Unfortunately, our education sometimes comes in at a loggerheads with that very simple approach. A first principle approach we will keep on hearing, but when applied, it becomes very difficult. Specific to the hardware space, I would think that's my core belief that technology should be a means to an end rather than the end itself. So a very shiny object, people today, AI or robotics is becoming a very shiny object, but don't I would think that running after them is not going to help the cause unless it is put to some good commercial usage where the technology gets its right benefit. So those are the two things which we are doing. But again, a big disclaimer there: we are very early in our journey, hardly in a position to summarize to anyone. We are learning ourselves, and we'll continue to learn it.
Thank you so much, Devang, for taking out time and joining us on this podcast. And thank you so much, Budhaditya, for sharing your, product insights, the fabulous work that you have been doing in this space. We at Dawdle wish you all the best. And Devang, you're going to be a continuous, guest to our podcast. Thank you so much.
Sure, look forward. Thank you.
Thank you.